No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
I'm just gonna. Look, we're recording. I'm not even. I was gonna say I'm gonna do the thing where I record without telling you, but then I just told you.
I watched you hit the button.
I know. Man, why can't I be a cool podcast guy?
Because you have this guilt as a magician about telling the truth in actual life. That's what I go through that too.
Yeah. Do you
Can't
feel
lie
like
to people?
I think that's a good thing. I like telling the audience I'm not gonna lie to you, and I don't.
For the most part, I don't think you do in your show.
I don't think I lie. Do I lie to people?
I don't think so. I think that's kind of a fun. I've had disagreements with other magicians about this, but I think it's kind of fun to tell as much truth as you can in the show, and then deceive them in other ways.
Right.
And I opened my show going, "Hi, I'm going to show you some fake magic tricks,"
Which is the best.
And people get mad. I've had parents come up if I'm doing a family show. They go, "Well, he didn't actually mean that, right? He's going to do real magic tricks." I'm like, "What real magic tricks are you talking about?"
Well, it terrifies me that there are some people who think it's real.
Yeah.
Or think that some of it is real.
I find that people gravitate towards mentalism more as being real. Much more, I think, than what we do. I mean, we do a little bit of mentalism stuff, but guys who label themselves as only mentalists.
Well, don't you think some of that's on the mentalist community? That they kind of like... I feel like in magic, for the most part, because when it comes to like psychics and that kind of stuff,
Sure.
magicians are kind of like, hey, this is crap. We should tell people that this stuff is not real.
Yeah.
But then mentalists almost like play off the fact that I am reading your mind.
Certain ones do,
Yeah.
and I think that's shameful. But there are guys like Amazing Randy who would open his show
That's
years
true.
ago and say, "This is all bubkiss," and then
Right.
would have a guy show up at his doorstep and say, yeah, I know you said it's fake, but I need you to help me out in the horse race this week."
Darren Brown does that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he says, if you don't believe in this, I don't believe in it either. And then still has people at the end go, have you ever had somebody think that you could really do magic? Or...
No, because I'm not that good. It's only recently that I've realized that there are like a certain number of like close-up effects that kind of things all guys do that I kind of put in the routine because I don't do as much close-up, that I started getting better reactions. And I realized, the rest of my close-up isn't as good.
all the things I do, because most of my stuff is staged, like all my close-up stuff is stuff I did when I was like 17 years old. I just stopped growing in that area.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not what we're passionate about. You know,
That's
we
true.
do those. If someone says, "Can you do close-up at this gig before a show?" Sure,
Right.
I'll say yes, but I'm not going to spend days working on new material for it. I will spend days at it working on new material for the show because that's what I'm passionate about.
I've noticed for me with close-up, because I do enjoy performing close-up, and I was trying to figure out, the other day I was doing a corporate event, and part of the deal was I was doing like an after-dinner show, like a 45-minute show, but then I was going to do close-up beforehand. And I did not enjoy doing close-up that night. And I was trying to figure out what it is, like what the difference is, and then I realized I only like doing close-up when I'm not hired to do it.
Yeah.
Like if we're hanging out and having drinks and hanging around with some friends and someone's like, do a thing.
Because there's no
I
pressure
enjoy
to
that.
do that same trick 200 more times that night.
That's
my problem.
Is that what it is?
I treat it as like 5-minute shows that I have to do for 3 hours, and I'm exhausted by 45 minutes in because that's just me approaching it incorrectly and not
Right.
approaching it from a place of fun and excitement.
Right.
That's why I was terrified to do Magic Bar in Encino, which is run by Ben Schrader.
Which is
Super
such
fun
a cool
place.
location and venue. And
Horrified to do it. I was like, I can't do this. And
you're doing like an hour of close-up, right?
hour of close-up. I mean, I modified certain things in the show, but for the most part, it's close-up. And I had a great time doing it because it was that same thing of
Right.
everybody showed up to see a show. Everybody knows what the deal is.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do the same trick 5,000 times that night. You're doing each thing once. And
Yeah.
it's, because I kind of started doing small parties and stuff like that in high school or working restaurants.
Yeah.
And you're just doing the same 5 minutes over and over and over, and you just go nuts.
You feel like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day.
It is Groundhog Day, yeah. I mean, Penn Jillette's made this point, and Handsome Jack so wonderfully pointed out to me when I wrote a whole blog about this, that this is Groundhog Day, and he goes, Penn talked about that a couple of years ago, so you might not want to take that post down. And I go, yeah, you're right. I completely forgot about it.
Oh, well.
But that's the perfect point for what we do. We're just trying to relive the same moment over and over.
Ooh.
And make it better.
Right.
And learn piano.
I was when we were talking about mentalists and people, kind of people doing magic, but for shady reasons, whether it's psychics or mediums or, the guy who's a crossing over guy who's
yeah,
whatever that guy is. Let's not say his name.
He shall not be named.
Yeah, Voldemort.
You just said it.
I had a guy call me once, and he said, I have a very important show that I need you to do. It's for one person, and they can't know it's a show. And I was intrigued. I was like, what is going on? And this guy called me, and he said, my girlfriend recently... Well, first he said, could you convince someone using magic tricks that you are a psychic? I'm like, well, I probably could. And he's like, well... My girlfriend broke up with me, and she's really into psychics. And I know that stuff's not real, but all I need you to do is pose as a psychic, convince her that you're like the real deal using magic tricks, and then tell her that if she doesn't come back to me, terrible things are going to happen to her. And he's like, I will give you any amount of money you request. And I was like, I just can't do that.
Not even for the psychic thing, but just like allowing a crazy person to want to get away with this.
Right. I don't understand. But there are so many people in our circle that would do that.
Sir, this is why you're single.
Sir, this is why.
I'm going to venture to say that this is why the relationship didn't work.
I'm going to give me 3 guesses as to why she's leaving you.
Sir, I'm going to prove to you right now that I am a psychic.
I'm going to prove to a psychic she's never coming back to you, and you will die sad and alone. Hold on one second. This is... I should
get his phone out.
I'm doing the
so
thing...
rude helping a child get better at magic.
Well, here's the thing. I left my phone on. We talked about this because I don't care about you. No, but because we're expecting a phone call from a young magician who his mom asked if we can give him a pep talk because he's doing school town show on Saturday. Big deal. He's very excited about it.
That's how I get started.
It's the best, man. But now because my phone is on, I'm getting questions from Katie because we're going on a road trip tomorrow, and she's like, when are we dropping the dog off? And I'm like, oh no, can you drop the dog off now? So one moment, please.
You're missing.
And we're back. This is Nick Paul's second time on the About to Break podcast.
I'm actually in your studio this time.
This is the first time. Okay, so the first time we sat down for the podcast was really kind of the first time we really spent much time chatting.
Which
right?
I was just informed that you didn't have a good time, and I'm really sorry about
I did not say that. I had a great time. We met in your former apartment, had a studio.
I had a little sound booth.
A sound booth.
Like, it's the most LA thing in the world to have a sound studio included in your apartment.
That's the amenities.
We have a gym, a pool, and an audio booth
an audio
that you can
control
use
room, yeah.
for your failed auditions.
Yeah, so I had a great time. What I was saying is we were trying to do... First of all, it was like the first time we sat down for a long conversation.
Yeah, we met. We did a show together at West Side Comedy.
We did.
In Santa Monica.
And we talked in the alley beforehand.
Creepily, yeah, because there is no backstage.
There's no
space,
backstage.
unless you're like about to go on stage.
Right.
First and last time I've ever performed there. Which is fun. I've been asked to do other shows there. I'm like, it's a great space, but not at a midnight show for free.
Yeah, no, it's
I'm
terrifying.
a jerk. I gotta stop saying things like that.
That's beautiful.
Can you edit this out?
Not at all. So, so Nick and I got together to do his podcast, and we had this idea of like, we'll record once, but I'll post it and you post it. Mm-hmm. And my regret with that is we never got to like the Nick Paul. We were trying to talk about
I feel like I
my
yapped about
life.
myself the whole time.
I don't know.
I always talk about
Well,
myself,
then you
and then I have
interview
to
me.
realize how much I'm talking about myself, and then turn it back to you,
There you
and then
go.
2 seconds later, I'll make it back about myself.
Well, let's just forget about you then. You interview me. I think we all do that though, man. I mean, I recently was talking with someone to make it about me.
We're just gonna call it each
We're
time we
just calling
spin
it
it
out.
back.
But I realized the other day I was talking with someone, and it was someone who had a job. It doesn't matter what their job was. They hate their job. They were very open about how they hate their job.
Mm-hmm.
But then they went on to talk for like 20 minutes about their job that they hate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here going, I didn't choose to do your job that you hate.
Why do I gotta listen to this?
And I remember just thinking, and then I called myself, like I was like, dude, you're being kind of a narcissist. Because in my head, though, I'm going like, what I want to talk about is so much more enjoyable than what you want to talk about.
My worst day is nothing compared
Isn't
to your
that
best day.
awful?
Yeah. I understand. I have friends like that too. I have really close friends who just, always complaining about his job, and I'm like, you can quit.
Yeah, that's what I did. Here's an idea. Just leave.
Yeah.
You're free to go.
I mean, in getting back to, I'm kind of going through that right now, where I had a job that I worked for, a gig
Right.
on a certain ship.
A reoccurring,
headed-
like a same client.
headed
over
by
and over.
a rodent as their mascot.
Headed by a rodent. I thought you said I had to buy a rodent.
I had
I'm
to
like,
buy
this is-
rodents to bring it on.
This is a deep.
Yeah. And then I was just informed that I'm not going to be working there anymore for no fault of my own, other than I'm not killing it. I'm getting good scores as a performer,
Right.
but not amazing scores compared to the people I'm getting compared to. And they have a high opinion of certain people. And it's. I mean, getting back to the friend of yours and mine that we were just judging. It is terrifying. It is terrifying to leave something,
Yeah.
and to go, well, I'm done with this, because I now that I think about it, I didn't enjoy it that much. It was simply a paycheck, because
Right.
it was a lot of work and a lot of shows and a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
And on paper, it looks really nice. Oh wow, you're in this exotic location, but
Yep.
it's a lot of moving around and a lot of pressure to do a good job every time.
Right.
And now that that's been taken away from me, I've been in a state of, oh, okay, let's just kind of embrace the failure and embrace. It's kind of like a grieving period, and then you go, oh, that's, I think, ultimately going to be a good thing, hopefully.
Yep.
It's scary to walk away from stuff.
Yeah, it's terrifying, especially when you spend so much time trying to get into that thing
Yeah.
and then trying to decide if you're going to leave it.
Spent 5 years, I think, altogether. 2 of which just trying to get booked. Then did it once, went okay. Year and a half goes by, don't get another date, and then all of a sudden get 4 dates for 2018. I'm like, oh
man.
great, that means I'm going to
Yeah.
get even
You're
more
back
for
in.
2019.
You're back in.
Then all of a sudden, nothing.
Right.
It's nuts.
Right now, my wife is walking up because I have the car keys in my pocket.
Ladies and gentlemen, the
I am
fetching
so
Katie
sorry.
Hughes.
This is the fetching Mrs. Hughes. Say hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
This is the most weird podcast we've done,
It is.
babe.
None of this is going to air. Don't worry.
Okay. I love you. Drive safe. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Oh, gee whiz. I'm sorry, Nick Paul. Nick Paul was just sharing a heartfelt moment.
It's fine. This is just how every heartfelt moment of my life goes. It's ruined by something that actually is important.
Well, you talk about like being. It's interesting. You spend so much time trying to get into somewhere, and then not enjoying it while you're there.
Yeah, you're just judging it the whole time. I'm judging the audiences. I'm judging this, and
Right.
And then when it's taken away, you're like, oh, I really want that. That's the thing I want. But you're like, oh, was it? Was it
Yeah.
really what I was right for me? And I think a friend of mine said it best. He's like, to be honest, I don't really see them as your target market, which in
Well, yeah.
total is a compliment.
Yeah.
Because, that's the cruise ship industry is fine, but you're not performing for people that see a lot of entertainment and a lot of art and
Right.
aren't the most savvy crowds. It's not judging them. It's just that's the truth.
Right.
And that's just what it is. You have to have something that plays to kind of a very broad base.
Well, and you're performing. I told you just recently about a corporate event I did that was really rough, and it was the environment was rough because of what was going on, and then all of a sudden the show was terrible. Mm-hmm. And when you're working on a cruise ship, you never know like when it's going to be a rough sea day.
Yeah.
If the food was bad that night, if something happened earlier during the muster drill that pissed everybody off. Like, you know what I mean? And then you get up on stage, and if
you don't get a standing O, the cruise director's like, he's all right. Even though everybody kept be laughing, losing their mind throughout the whole show. If you don't get that standing O in their mind, it's like, he wasn't that great, which is such a bummer.
Yeah.
And I'm so against standing O's. I think they're so fake.
You're against them?
And so ridiculous.
Let's talk about that. You're against people giving a standing ovation, or you're against performers
I just love Jerry Seinfeld's line of when he's in the audience and everybody else in the row stands up and he looks around and goes, we doing this?
We're doing it.
That's how I feel every time.
Right.
But there has been times when if I've gotten up to give a standing O, it's because what I saw was transcending or very moving and was deserving of it.
Yeah.
And like on ships or certain performers, they'll just stand there for an extra 5 seconds.
Do the
or
really
10
slow
seconds.
bow and then stay down. And then do the
I
really
just can't
slow
get on board
rise.
with that. I don't know. There's a timing to that. There's a way to play it up, and it works for guys, and that's how they get rebooked. I just couldn't live with myself, and maybe that's the reason I'm not doing that stuff as much anymore.
When the show is over, I have a hard time standing there. Like you're supposed to stand and give people a chance. Yeah, even if they're applauding, you're supposed to acknowledge the applause, I suppose. Yeah. But I've noticed, like, when I watch video routines, I'm like, oh, I just walked off.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I walk away.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to stop doing that for sure. Yeah. Because that's the instinct. You're like, okay, thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
But there is nothing wrong with like accepting, thank you, have a good night, accepting what the audience is giving you. But I think there's just a line of, it's pretty obvious to feel when you're just waiting. All right. Yeah. You guys going to stand up now?
Right.
It's just weird. And I've seen it on ships and I'm like, I don't like any of this. But that's okay. You do this long enough, you figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
Right. We are both getting ready to go on some travel. Yeah. You've got a crazy travel schedule. I've got a crazy travel. Can you give me a pep talk, Nick, about travel?
But you travel more than I do. What are you talking about?
Because I don't want to do it right now.
See, you're in this caveat. Like, I feel like in November we were both going, oh man, we're not working. We got our thumbs. Right. Now you're literally like, you just told me you have 6 weeks of work traveling. Yeah. And you're like, oh, I don't want to travel. I don't want to do it. But that's just how it works in this business.
This business is schizophrenic. Mm-hmm. The business is bipolar.
I'm listening to Conan O'Brien's podcast, which I love, and it was so gratifying to hear when he said that. He's like, if I go on vacation, by day 2, I'm thinking about the show. Right. When I'm at the show, I'm thinking about going on vacation. And I think that's a slam dunk for how I approach this and, how erratic I am with it sometimes.
Well, I suppose people with 9 to 5s look forward to the weekend. That's like the old cliche is like, everyone's working for the weekend.
Yeah.
But our weekend is whatever we're not doing. If we're not doing the show, it's the show.
I crave structure, and yes, you can please turn off that heater. I'm dying.
So
it's 38 degrees outside in California, and we turned on the space heater. And now I'm dying.
Yeah, the shed that I built, it's interesting because it can be either freezing or really hot in a matter of seconds.
That's just California.
It's true. It's true. Actually, this is about the size of most Hollywood studio apartments.
You could get about $1,200 a month easily in this small 300 square foot. Yeah.
96 square feet.
Is it 96?
No, wait. It is 96 square feet, yeah.
You could rent this to a small family. You could cover half.
We got the pitch ceilings. We could do a bunk bed.
In Hong Kong, this is no joke. This is an apartment.
That's right. You spend some time in Macau.
I'm sorry to bring it up, but yes.
No. Well, I think it's this has just turned into you and I complaining about the work we do.
That's all we do when we hang out is just complain about the gifts that other people would be like so happy to be a part of. But that's the fun and the thing about it is once you get to these, I used to say next level. It's not that, but next opportunity. There's a whole new set of doors that open that. Well, I'm going on tour with Justin Willman for 2 weeks to help him out with some stuff, and I'm terrified because the things I'm doing aren't things I normally do in my show.
And you're not going to enjoy it because you'll be stressed.
I'm going to be stressed out. I'm like, I want to do a good job. I don't want to get fired because that's the worst thing in my mind. For like a friend to go, sorry, buddy, I'm going to hire somebody else. By your friend because it's always a possibility, and especially in this business because everybody's you're trying to do your best, but Yeah, it's so there's all with every new opportunity, there's new stresses and struggles, and ultimately you just got to shut the F up and go, it's fine. It's not
fine.
rocket surgery. You're okay.
Just calm down. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Go learn a new card trick.
Then I get stressed out. I'm not going to do it right, or I'm going to get judged. I'm doing it incorrectly.
I know, man.
It's okay. That's my
Nick is one of my good friends that we can talk about not just the good stuff, but the bad stuff.
I think so.
Yeah, we do that quite often. So this is just giving people a taste of what most of our conversations are with one another.
It's weird to bring up, but I'm seeing doing a video conference through a service called Teledoc with a psychiatrist tomorrow for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm terrified. Terrified.
How did this get initiated? Were you just looking for someone, or?
It was a conversation between my wife and I. We were having an argument about something, and then she kind of brought up in a completely valid way of how you keep saying you're going to do this and you don't, and dealing with anxiety and depression. But the problem is when it's mild, like when it's manageable, it's kind of worse because you're like, I know I'll be able to get through this. I'm not going to like lock. It's not as bad as people who actually have it, who are, have lots of medication for it.
Debilitating.
And can't get out of bed some days. I've never had that, but it's always like mild enough to where it's annoying,
Just
or
kind
you
of
feel
always
like
running in the background.
Yeah, you feel like you're
level.
not good enough. You're like, why am I getting this opportunity, or why am I not doing that thing? Or so I think it's about time. I don't know. It could be one and done. It could be helpful. I don't know, but it's just one of those things I've had to force myself to do.
So you're doing this over like Skype or something, or?
Yeah, which was intriguing to me. Like health insurance offers it through the service where you can talk, even like regular doctors or behavioral health doctors. And I'm like, well, it's literally included with my insurance.
Right.
It's costing me nothing, which is something I worry about money all the time.
Right. Oh yeah.
So it's like I have to do it and just shut up, do it. And if it doesn't go well, you find somebody else, or then it's not for you, and that's okay.
I used to have this stigma about therapy and psychologists, and just because I felt like I don't even know why. I think maybe I had some family members who would use that as like a justification.
Sure. It's only recently that it's okay to really talk about, but quote unquote okay.
But dude, when I quit my job at the place I was working before I went full time, and I had like some serious drama going on and trauma, and I went to a talk therapist for a couple years, and I had to do it. Like it was just the greatest thing.
Sure.
And even recently, 6 months ago when I had my panic attack, were you filled in for me?
I gotta call it noon.
I called you.
Can you do 3 shows tonight and 3 shows tomorrow?
Yeah, I was.
Maybe. What? How come? I'm dying.
Oh God, man.
I was like, oh, yep, I'll be there.
Yeah, I physically.
It's terrifying.
I just shut down, man. And for me too, like I never really dealt with anxiety until I went through the trauma I did at my place of employment that was a church, ironically. Going through that and then jumping right into doing this full time, which is anything but stable.
Yeah.
It was the first time that I was like, I need to talk to somebody. I need some sort of guidance or navigation, or at least acknowledgement that that I'm not the only one who feels like this or is going like this. So I'm a huge proponent of it, man, because even it had been a couple years since I had gone on a regular basis, and 6 months ago when I called you and was like, hey, I physically can't get out of bed and am just broken right now. Can you do my shows at the Magic Castle?
Yeah.
I called up my therapist, and it was so helpful. There's something about those practices of, communicating your feelings, and
it's funny how just like it piles up. It feels like all at once, but really it's just kind of things, one thing after another, slowly building and building, and then all of a sudden it explodes. That kind of is what happens for me. It's like I'm worried about this thing, and then I'm worried about this thing, and all of a sudden something little will set it off.
Yeah.
And I used to have more like anger issues, which always is weird for people to hear from me because I'm like this like happy-go-lucky guy on stage.
Yeah.
But something I've done a lot of work on, and I'm very happy that I'm at a point now, like with a lot of like Zen stuff and whatnot, of being able to not react to things as much. I still do, and I still have short fuse at times, but it's nothing compared to what it was.
How would that manifest itself? Was it more like you internalized that anger, or?
Yeah, and then like road rage type stuff. Just internalizing. Yeah, it's not so much every once in a while an explosion. I mean, it's just like getting mad at really dumb things. I think the best thing, the most like best example of it was I was talking to because it comes from the family. It's like it's definitely a genetic thing.
Right.
And I was talking to my dad or something on the phone, and then he was having an issue, getting frustrated at something, didn't hang up on me. He's like, I got to call you back, blah, blah, blah. And then he apologizes through text. He goes, I'm really sorry. I'm so glad you take after your mother. And I responded with, don't worry. I just yelled at my suitcase for 50 minutes. I take after you just fine. And totally true. I was like packing for a show and I just lost it.
Yeah.
So it's funny how those little things just kind of pop up out of nowhere, or what feels like it's out of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah. I often wonder, what is it that, because these are common things within performance art, anxiety, sometimes depression, feeling like imposter syndrome, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just interesting. I wonder, what is it, the fact that we see what everyone else is doing? Like, did this stuff go on years ago before we were exposed to everyone else's illusion of success on social media? Or
social media has such a big effect. I'll notice if I spend a day where I'm not on social media much, I'm having a much better day usually mentally.
Yep.
So just being self-aware of that and not scrolling that much through, like you can post something, like my rule is I'll post something and then keep an eye on comments and stuff, but not really scroll, which is kind of not good because you want to support your friends and, see what they're doing and, have everybody's project be seen and whatnot. But, even if somebody you could be doing something. It happens all the time. I'm doing a gig that's very similar, and I'll see a friend doing a gig going, "Oh, how do you get that?" And I have to stop myself going, Why did I say that? Why? Yeah. You should be happy for the people that are good and getting work. And there's just too much of a hidden jealousy on social media that we all kind of tiptoe around and don't react it correctly. I don't know.
Well, there's the two sides of it. There's the people who go on YouTube and just say whatever their thoughts or feelings or opinions are about people, and that's not healthy.
Yeah, it's no different than commenting on every political post.
Right.
Whatever you agree or disagree on.
Right.
I think it's still wrong to call somebody an idiot.
Right. And then the opposite is what we tend to do, where you think it.
Internalize.
And then you just internalize it because you're like, I'm not going to say anything. But every time you see that, it reminds you, or it puts you back in that spot. And it's weird that we live in a world where, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I mean, you knew the people in your class at school.
Yeah.
And then you knew maybe like your aunts and uncles, and maybe your parents had two friends that you knew. And that was it. That was the whole world.
And you were familiar, like in my case, familiar with like certain celebrities, or like I grew up in like the Nickelodeon generation. So you'd see that, be influenced by that. But it was still a tinier community.
Right. Well, and even then you would see that Nickelodeon show, but you wouldn't see the commentary on YouTube with so-and-so. And
somebody gave me their full paragraph.
They went to this donut shop and threw a fit on Friday night, and that's the type of person they are. And, it's
a lot more information to take in. And I think because it's been around now for Facebook's been around since 2004, and then Instagram, is 6, 7, 8 years, whatever we're at now.
Something like that.
I think it's finding a way. I think people are becoming more and more aware of what it's doing to them. I hope that's what it feels like, especially like with the whole political scene now. I've seen Facebook go from constant yelling, complaining to people only posting positive things. That's not everybody, but it feels like more and more less critical, judgmental complaining.
Yeah.
I know I've certainly tried to do that. I'm like, if I ever type something that's complaining about something, I'll type it out and then go, okay, you got out of your system. Is this really worth sharing?
Yeah.
Is this joke funny enough?
Yep.
Is it worth to bring this subject down, or and ultimately it's funny, the positive stuff always gets more attention online anyway. So there's something to that. People do want to be uplifted too.
Yeah. Overexposure to anything is going to make you callous or numb to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the, like I've noticed lately with the political stuff, years ago, if you didn't have the internet, you'd see the headlines on the news, which when we were kids, I think the news only happened at night. It was like news in the morning and then news at night. But now there's news all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see it on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere people are posting stuff. And I'm concerned on a personal level of just not shutting off when I hear that something's political and just shutting off and going like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's almost could be detrimental too,
It's becoming more and more like, even if I see somebody post something that I agree with,
right?
It's like, I don't want to hear it. Like, I gotta stop bringing up my father.
No, do it. It's okay.
I was talking with my dad.
We've got a call right now. Let's take a call from.
Okay. No. Dad? I haven't heard from you in 30 years. No, no, we agree politically. That's one of the things we have a connection of. We always talk about politics. And he was talking about the other day, he's like, can you believe this? Can you believe that? They want to do this. And I didn't say this, but in my head, I'm going, I just don't want to hear it right now.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. And I'm very lucky that I don't disagree politically with my parents, but because it's not always the case for people, but it's at a point where you're just like, I don't want to hear it anymore. And let's talk about what Aunt Sally's doing. What's Aunt Sally up to? Right. I don't really care, but I care more about that than what you're talking about politically. So.
Yeah, we should almost be a thing that's not the news. Like, we'll copyright this right now, everyone. Anyone who's listening, Nick, Paul, and Taylor Hughes have copyrighted this idea of
not the news.
Not the news.
Notthenews.com.
This is not the news. Did we buy it? Wow, we can't put this out till we buy it.
This podcast started off like very fun and lighthearted, and then I brought therapy up, and then I just brought it down.
Therapy is good. That's what this podcast is, though.
I used to watch Craig Ferguson all the time when he was hosting the Late Late Show, and my favorite thing he would do is celebrity he didn't know would like 3 questions in go, so do you go to therapy? And you would see the people that were so uncomfortable by that, who clearly didn't want to admit it. Yeah. And then it was just such a silver lining to see the people that were so open about it and happy to talk about it, and the people that were like, oh, leave me alone.
Yeah. I've noticed I started meditating using like the Headspace app. Mm-hmm. And I was doing that for consistently for like 4 months, like every day, twice a day. And I haven't done it in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I can feel the difference.
Wow.
And I think people who do therapy or like meditation, or who like tuned into these things that are, healthy mind practices for themselves, they're never the ones who are afraid to talk about it. Sure.
Yeah. Because it's all, it's at the forefront. And
you experience the value of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been going, really forcing myself to go to the gym more, and I'm the same way where I can't really meditate. I've tried a little bit. I can't do it, but if I can,
I'm terrible at it.
It's so hard.
I get so distracted.
All right, think of nothing. How do I think of nothing?
Think of nothing. All I'm thinking about is money. I don't have. There's nothing. There's no money.
You're just like, can I get
no
nothing?
Shows,
no money, not enough food. House is gonna be gone. Dogs are gonna be homeless.
When I close my eyes, I just see darkness.
But it's easier for me to like get into a zen state if I'm, doing pull-ups or doing a long walk or something, and getting some sort of physical, exercise, something. Yeah, getting the heart pounding of some sort. So it helps that having like, man, I'm just laying everything. You just bring everything out. You're not even asking. I'm just telling you these things. It helps like I don't have scoliosis. I have what's known as kyphosis, which is like a curved back as opposed to an S.
Kyphosis.
Yeah. And so like that's my motivation to go to the gym, to keep my back strong, because otherwise it's going to get more and more hunched and I'll have to have like back surgery and whatnot, and don't want to do that. Yeah. So ever since I've been going to the gym, I've been much better. I still hunch, but nothing compared to what it was. Yeah. But it's a twofer, because I have that motivation and reason to go. It's like I physically have to, and also I have to go for mental health reasons too.
Yeah.
If I don't want to be on medication, which who knows, I'll find out tomorrow if I need to. Which I've taken generic form of Xanax before shows, and it does help. I'll take it from time to time, but it does kick me into like a deep depression the next day in a weird way. And
it's like it makes it better for a minute.
Yeah. And it's not like suicidal or anything like that, but I just get sadder than I normally would. And I'm like, I was less anxious for the show and I was able to focus, but now I have to deal with this all day. So it's a weird, maybe there's a balance that I got to figure out.
It is the very little I know about it. It is a trial and error of figuring out what works for you and what helps you. You know, it's not like, oh, you just take this pill and this one's going to help you.
Yeah.
You might need a lower dosage or a higher dosage or a different type, or, you know, it's that kind of stuff it's just wild. It's been interesting. Katie has talked about it, but Katie and I have been working through that with her of just trying to figure out, and things will work for a season and then they won't. And,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we go through, my wife and I go through that stuff too. And it's real, you learn a lot, especially in marriage, about not judging your partner and not judging other people for things. You're like, well, I would just do it this way. And you have to remember, well, that's how you would do it. That's not how they would do it.
Yep.
Even if in your mind, your method is quicker and more efficient, you have to realize that's not what works for them and that's not their path.
Right.
And that's just a Zen thing there too. And, getting away from, I've been trying so hard to get away, and I fail all the time when I text you, but getting away from like judgment and getting away from reacting incorrectly or negatively.
It's hard, man.
That's the toughest thing right there.
Yeah.
Is just reacting positively to things.
Yeah. And you start to realize that to be the type of person we want to be, that's a practice. It's not like you have an epiphany and now all of a sudden you're not judgmental. It's like, no, every time I see this one person, they're going to drive me crazy because the way they do this or what they said about this one time. And it's that constant putting yourself in that mindset of saying, okay, I'm going to choose to accept them for who they are. And, you know, but I've never found, at least for me, I've never found like there's some magic moment where now I just don't struggle with.
I think just being aware that that's the good thing about the gym is that it's always a journey, and you're not like, okay, I'm buff now forever. No, that'll go away in a couple weeks if you don't keep working at that, which really sucks. But at the same time, it gives an impermanence to it, and also just like I had a thought about, I'm wired to be, like I said, anxious, be angry at things, be negative, but the second you start being aware of that and you're able to like fine tune your brain in weird ways,
right, and
go, okay, this is how I would normally react. But if I cannot help it right now, if I can be self-aware,
right,
I'm going to treat the situation differently. And, my wife will tell you many times, it's not how it goes. But I feel like I've been getting better and just been more alert to it. And yeah, it's funny when I go back home to Michigan, couple days, I'm a great guy to the family, and then I just become such a curmudgeon. And I think it's just like being around family, and we all get along, and I think maybe that's part of the problem is we all get along too well.
You're gonna
start judging
each other.
Yeah.
If you
why are you doing it this way? Like what I was saying with my dad. Why are you complaining about this? Why are you talking about yourself? And it's like, that's just who they are. You can't. My dad's 62. My mom's upper 50s. It's like. They've been around this long. This is what works for them. You're not going to change them. That's okay. That's fine. And just reminding yourself of that helps out a lot. Man, I've talked about my family so much. You can't air any
We won't
of
air
this.
any of this. We'll put this on a private link or something.
No, it's fine. I don't think I've said
is
anything.
Your family listening to my podcast anyway?
My mom listened to our first interview,
did she?
so I'm like, I'm a little bit nervous now.
Oh no. No, you haven't.
I don't think I've said anything too bad. I think it's all truth that I would say to my father. Like my
it's good
dad
and
made a
healthy.
joke. I was talking again with him on the phone, and I shouldn't. You might have to cut this out. I'll think about it. I'm still going to tell it, but you might cut it out. He was like, yeah, your mother sometimes when she doesn't get enough sleep, she gets ornery, and it's a long day. And I go, it took everything inside me not to go, so have you just not been getting enough sleep my whole life? But I didn't say it.
That's terrific.
I texted my sister though, and she appreciated it.
Don't you feel like there's a little bit of once you stop trying to fix people, that there's a little bit of freedom in that?
Totally, yeah. And same with marriage too. Is like going back to, well, if you did it this way, and just going, no, that's what you signed up for. You're not going to change that person, and being okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, man. That was when I gave up the job working at the church. That was a big part of it, was trying to change people. Like a big part of that whole environment was trying to fix people who are broken and this and that. And it's one thing to like support people or like help empower them to do things that they've chosen to do. It's another thing to wake up every day and feel like you're responsible to make somebody be something different than they are. Mm-hmm. And once I let go of that, so much freedom, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so fascinating about that is you don't even realize that's what you're doing.
No.
Like if you just did it this way, just change these little thing in your daily routine,
right?
You'd be so much more successful than realizing that just doesn't work for them.
Yeah, and I mean, we just said like the fact that you can't change anybody, the pressure that puts on you when you feel like it's your job to.
Yeah.
Or like you're not a good person if, you know, you talk to your friend who was really deep down some negative drugs and he's still doing them. You know what I mean? Like it's
I'd be curious, and you're welcome not to talk about this on air because you don't bring up being a parent that much, but I'd be curious how you approach that as a father, because I forget you're a father.
Do you really?
You're this hip guy, and I only see you in Hollywood, and then I come back here, I'm like, oh yeah, he has 2
10 and
daughters?
a 13-year-old, man.
And I think that's a compliment, because I have, you meet people who have kids, and you're like, oh yeah, you're a parent.
They traded in life for...
They talk differently, you know, you guys do a good job of like not talking down to your kids and treating them as human beings, and Michael Rayner too. Like you guys have both been inspirations for Chris and I to have kids, because like, oh, they're like normal human beings. And and I'm not judging my friends who have kids, but you see people with kids go, Spencer, put it down. What did we talk about? And I'm like, just take it from the kid.
Spencer's 16. Why are you talking to him like that?
Take the car keys away.
Yeah. Well, someone told me when our kids were real little, they challenged Katie and I with, or when we were actually, I think it was when Katie was pregnant with Madeline, which is our first. Somebody challenged us that like when the kid comes, they're entering your family. Like they're coming into an already established relationship and household, and it's not the other way around. It's not that you have to change everything you're about to adjust to them. It's you want to create a home for them, but at the same time, like we had an argument this week with the girl, not an argument, but my girls were mad because we're going to Europe this summer, Katie and I, and they're furious that they're not going. And I'm like, look, you should be so glad that your parents love each other and want to explore the world together and want to spend time together. And you know what? Someday probably you'll go and that'll be great, you know? But it's just one of those things where...
It's funny, when I was a kid, I would get mad at stuff like that too. Like, why aren't we going? And then you realize, oh, you're one of only a handful of kids in the neighborhood who like have parents that have been together for 20 years and like love each other and haven't gotten divorced, get along very well. It's funny how, the problems change when, things are going well.
Yeah. I have an amazing wife. We've been through quite a bit together, and it's communication. It really is. I know that's like the cliche, but it's just communicating with your kids, communicating with your wife, always talking about things together, spending as much time together as you can. Tomorrow I'm doing a week of shows, or 4 days of shows in Arizona, and I normally would have flown, but I'm going to drive so they can come with me, and we'll still get to see each other during the day, and you do whatever you got to do to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have a nice, way you have it set up, and you're able to travel a lot together, and that's the dream for sure. You're like Jim Gaffigan, but with less kids.
I love Jim's bit where he's like, having 5 kids is like it feels like if you're drowning and someone hands you a baby.
Yeah. That's it. That's how I imagine it is, at least.
Right.
We're terrified to have one kid, and let alone have 5. Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Severely outnumbered at that point.
I heard. I'm sure this is very common, but they said don't have more kids than you have hands. I'm like, that makes sense to me.
That's good. I was trying to think. Does anyone have 3 hands? No.
My dad actually does. Which,
He has 3 hands?
No, he has 1.5.
One. Oh.
He has half of arm on one. So I guess so. I have 2 other siblings.
Really?
So 3. Yeah.
I didn't know you did.
Yeah.
He's a ventriloquist.
Yeah. And so he uses the other hand to puppet.
That's.
You only need one hand.
I wouldn't know. Yeah. Wow.
I'm revealing way too much about my family. I mean, that's pretty obvious. You go to his website, that's the first thing you see, so it's fine. He's a motivational speaker for a while.
Okay.
And for a long time, he went by the 1.5 armed motivational speaker. And then my mom was like, maybe don't. Maybe don't do that. I don't think that's a good message. Not good marketing.
Is this guy going to cost us an arm and a leg? Just an arm and half another arm. That's terrible. None of this will ever see the light of day, Nick Paul.
Probably not. This will be for your Patreon
This will
listeners.
be the deep, dark web of Patreon.
If you donate to my podcast on Patreon, Two Magicians and Mike, and you donate to Taylor's,
there you go.
get this episode.
This is for the dual Patreon listeners. Well, Nick Paul, you and I have to do a FaceTime call with some budding young magicians
and I have to
encourage them after we just spewed our low.
What do you want, kid?
What do you want? My encouragement? Get out of the business.
I did my talent show in 3rd grade. Nobody cared. I take that back. That was when I knew. It was like Copperfield's story. I did it, and I'm like, oh, I'm hooked. People are suddenly talking to me now.
I must do this.
Yeah.
Nick Paul, do you want to plug anything?
My podcast, Two Magicians, One Mic. Catch nickpaul.net/live. You can see any live dates in Hollywood and in the world.
I wish this was a video podcast because your face when you do that voice transforms into something amazing.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of running around. I'm doing Branson, thanks to you.
Yeah.
I'm doing House of Cards. I'm
Nashville.
doing some other theaters around. So yeah. Oh, and the FaceTime's coming
the
now.
FaceTime's
I gotta stop plugging myself.
Everyone, okay, go listen to Nick.
Bye.
Bye.